with breaking news.
Several people are hurt, others are missing after a huge house fire in South Fulton this morning. I'm Gervier Dinza.
And I'm Brooks Baptiste in for Rob Hughes. We appreciate you joining us. Here's a look at that video from the scene. This is along Oswego Trail. And you can see, while you can't see flames in this video, you can tell that there's such a huge presence, meaning that there was something massive out there for sure. We want to get out to our reporter, Rebecca Schramm. She's joining us live from the scene, tracking those new developments at this hour. Good morning to you, Rebecca.
Good morning, Brooks. This is an established neighborhood off Old National Highway here in the city of South Fulton. It's a very large two-story home. You can probably see it there through the woods. This is about as close as they're letting us get. You might be able to see a ladder leaning against a window. They're able to peek in, but that's about the extent of it because of the damage to this home. We're told some people were able to make it out. Apparently several lived in this home. Some of those who made it out were injured and taken to the hospital, but I'm learning it's possible there are victims inside who did not survive. This is some video of what the scene looked like early this morning before daylight when one of our photojournalist colleagues first arrived on the scene. Actually, we have some daylight video for you as well. I spoke with Lieutenant Eric Jackson of the DeKalb County Fire, of the South Fulton Fire Department, formerly DeKalb County. He says what's difficult right now is trying to get into the home to look for victims.
It's still structurally unstable. We know that there are burned out structures. There's flooring that's burned out. There are stairwells that are burned out. And so it's just extremely difficult for us to go in. We are able to see that from the front, the side, and from the rear of the house. So we're just strategizing to figure out how we can best get into the home without hurting any of our firefighters.
Yeah, so that's the biggest challenge right now. As you look live, I can tell you about half an hour before that interview, Lieutenant Jackson, I noticed, was a little bit emotional. He told me that's because he was learning that it's possible there were children inside who did not make it out. He has not been able to confirm that, but that's just something he was trying to figure out himself. I'm going to share with you the part of the interview where I asked him about his emotions, and that is coming up in our next half hour. Live in the city of South Fulton, Rebecca Schramm. We want to send it over now to Madeline Montgomery, my colleague. She is at Grady Memorial Hospital. Madeline, what are you learning there?
Rebecca, Lieutenant Jackson tells me that there are 5 people who are here right now being treated from those burn injuries from this fire, and those 5 people were brought by ambulance. Before the paramedics got there, though, South Fulton firefighters were helping treat them and take care of them. The good news is with those 5, they are expected to survive their injuries, and Lieutenant Jackson tells me that more people may have been brought to different hospitals in personal vehicles, but it's hard for them to keep track of all that and all of the chaos of trying to put out the fire and trying to save people who are still inside of that building. But we know Grady is an excellent spot to be brought after one of these situations, and that's because it's ranked the best burn care in the Southeast. And one of the reasons it is such a good spot to come is because that not only do they tend to adults who've been burned, but they also have specialties in pediatrics when it comes to people who are burned. And so with this situation, we're still wondering if children are involved. This is a spot that they would be able to be treated. And we're going to stay here and learn more about who all was injured and just learn what exactly happened. But for now, reporting live in Atlanta, I'm Madeline Montgomery, Atlanta News.
And we're bringing you out to this live scene as an investigation continues here in South Fulton, the 7,200 block of Oswego Trail where this fire first broke out. I'm going to take a moment to reach out to our Rebecca Schramm, who we'll be speaking to here in a few short minutes about what she's learned. She's been at this scene all morning, and we will be touching base with her, bringing you that live report. Give me just one moment while I reach her. Hey, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. And I believe we were able to touch base here with our reporter, Rebecca Schramm. She's been at this scene all morning. Rebecca, I mean, this has just been such an emotionally taxing day for the victims involved, for those fire officials. You talked to Lieutenant Eric Jackson, who had his own words to say, calling this a different kind of day. Just talk about the emotions in the air right now.
Well, it's difficult, Maria, because right now we don't know exactly who is still in that house, if anyone, but our hunch is that at least one person, perhaps more, are inside the home. We know that several people were unaccounted for when all of this started happening, when firefighters were arriving on the scene. Several were transported to the hospital, Grady Memorial Hospital. Some of them went by ambulance, others went by personal car, and we're told there were others who were unaccounted for. And a lot of times in fires, that tells us that someone was trapped and did not make it out alive. The problem here is they're not able to get into the home. The structure is just too unstable right now. The floors, there's some instability with the floors. The stairs were badly burned. So that's part of it, Maria. And so it was interesting when I first arrived on the scene. I wasn't sure all of the facts of the story as we know it now, but I just knew that when I looked at Lieutenant Jackson, who I've known for 20 plus years, he used to work for the DeKalb County Fire Department. Now he works for South Fulton Fire Department. He had tears in his eyes, which I'm not used to seeing, frankly, with Lieutenant Jackson. He's pretty hardened. He's been in this profession for a long time, but he had tears in his eyes, and I pulled him aside as, are you okay? Did you know the people inside? And he said, no. And I said, he's a dad. So I asked him, is it possible there are children inside? And he said, I just don't know. But he also talked about how he feels, how he put himself in the position of these firefighters who were actually in there and actually are trying to get inside and have been working to contain the flames. And he said, it's just rough. He said, I've been there. I know what they're going through. I know what these investigators are going through as they try to deal with this family who is distraught. So just a lot of emotions right now. Again, there are so many details that he's not been able to share with us. Some of them they're not sharing with him. Again, he's sort of the liaison in this case, dealing sort of between the firefighters and us, the news media. So sometimes they don't share everything with him right away because they don't want him to share it with us. It's just too soon to share with the media, family-wise and that sort of thing. But yeah, Maria, just a really tough day for everybody involved. And those of us with kids, those of us who know kids, nieces, nephews, this is a tough day for everybody, thinking about the possibility that there are children trapped inside that home.
Absolutely. And Rebecca, I thought we would touch upon something Lieutenant Jackson mentioned, unaccounted for, not necessarily meaning loss of life. Can you explain that a little bit more? I know he spoke to the media briefly about what he means by unaccounted for persons.
Well, it could be, Maria, that the children ran off to another residence. Perhaps they got scared, and, that happens sometimes. Children will run away from a fire, and they're found later safe. We hope that that's the case. Again, we're not even 100% sure that there were children in the home. That's just what Lieutenant Jackson has sort of been able to gather. He's kind of figuring as such, but he's not been able to confirm that with us. But that does happen sometimes. He said, there were several people living in the home, and it's possible that some of them were out for the evening. So that may be part of the reason that people are not accounted for. Again, just so much we've still got to gather in this developing story. And
I'm not sure if that road that you're standing in front of is a busy area that people usually pass through. Is it going to be closed for some time, I imagine, while this investigation goes on?
I'm going to let Joe zoom into the fire truck so you can see for yourself, Maria. This is there's nothing beyond this. This is a dead end. This is all residential. So this is not a street where people would pass through. The only people who are past those fire trucks live back there. Oswego Trail is the name of this. It's off Old National. We've seen them reposition the fire trucks this morning, trying to get their hoses at a better angle. This street will be blocked, so there are undoubtedly neighbors who are not able to move in and out of their homes this morning. They're trapped, but it's for a good cause. These firefighters have to do their jobs, and right now this is where they're concentrating all their efforts.
And Rebecca, have you had a chance to speak to some of those neighbors? It's just been such a chaotic morning.
I can hardly hear you. I think you asked me if I've been able to speak with neighbors. I have not. We've seen some people milling around. We see some folks at the end of this driveway here. We've been keeping our distance for several reasons. First of all, firefighters really don't want us to walk beyond the point where we are now. So at this moment, this is as close as we've been able to get. But we also want to respect these neighbors. These are folks they knew. These are families that they've interacted with. So we're keeping our distance at the moment. We will try to speak with them a bit later, but we're going to give them some time to figure out what exactly they're dealing with at the moment.
Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. I know this is a story that you're likely going to follow into the noon hour, and we'll stay tuned with you for those updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Taking you back out here to that live picture of this ongoing investigation, just for those that might have jumped in on this live stream a little later, didn't catch our initial coverage, I wanted to give you a full rundown of everything that we know at this point and a lot of what we still don't know and are working to learn. This fire was first reported at 4:42 a.m. A 911 call actually came in at 4:42 in the morning. By 4:52, just 10 minutes later, the first fire crews were able to arrive at the scene. They described seeing this two-story home fully engulfed, heavy smokes, flame emitting from the house. Of course, that led them to immediately start taking action, assuming a defensive position, as they described, to fight this fire because of how significant those flames were. Now, they described at one point the roof caving in, the stairwell being significantly damaged, other parts of the home suffering damage as well, causing an unsafe situation for those firefighters. Once they were able to bring down the fire, they immediately started to conduct that investigation, but deemed that it was hazardous to enter the home at that time due to that structural damage. So an investigation was conducted on the perimeter of the house, on the outside. Right now, what they are waiting for, as you heard from Rebecca, is really that green light to go inside to conduct a more thorough investigation and possibly, as hard as it is to say, even look for those unaccounted folks. Now, we spoke to Lieutenant Eric Jackson of the City of South Fulton Fire Department earlier, and he said unaccounted for, as you heard from Rebecca, just means that they don't know the location of individuals tied to that specific home. They don't know if they managed to get out and just didn't contact anybody, or if they were trapped in the fire, and that's what we're holding out to learn. Now, we also learned from Rebecca that some of those unaccounted for persons could possibly be children. We do not have that confirmed at this time. That is something that we are waiting from officials to learn. When they are ready to tell us, that is going to be the first thing we report to you as soon as we learn anything. And of course, we're following what caused this fire and what started all this at 4:42 as firefighters arrived at the scene and began responding. Some of the other people, as Lieutenant Eric Jackson described, he said some of these unaccounted persons could range from older adults, middle-aged, young people. They really just don't know at this time. What they do know is that several people were taken to the hospital, about 5 people transported to Grady, as you heard from our Madeline Montgomery, and then 2 more people taken to the hospital by private vehicle. This is a live picture here of this ongoing investigation. You can see several units still very much at the scene. I'm going to take you out to an earlier video that we have of our conversation with Lieutenant Eric Jackson about this very ongoing investigation.
Regardless of the strides we're making, it's still a tough thing. And anytime there's someone that's unaccounted for, not only do we take that seriously, but it's a gut shot for us.
You can see some more video from earlier this morning. Of course, several law enforcement units at the scene, police, fire officials. At this point in the morning, they were still fighting that fire. You can see here more of the street. Now, this is not a busy roadway that people pass through, as Rebecca described. This is a residential area, but those neighbors, of course, who possibly knew some of the victims, heavily impacted by this. We haven't spoken to them just yet. We are being respectful of their space right now, but we are going to be working to talk to some of the individuals that might have been impacted by this and learn more about all that happened this morning and really following where those unaccounted people are, trying to hear from officials any news that we can on that situation and bring that to you live on our digital platforms. We are also bringing you continued coverage on Atlanta News First through the 10 o'clock hour, and of course on our digital platforms, atlantanewsfirst.com and the Atlanta News First app. Taking you out to this live picture here as fire officials, investigators continue to remain at this scene at 7200 Owego Trail, where a fire broke out this morning. Several people taken to the hospital, several more unaccounted for. We are going to be reaching out to our Madeline Montgomery. She's outside of Grady Hospital, where some of those victims were transported to. I'm actually connecting with her right now here in the background. So we should be able to touch base with her in about 2 to 3 minutes. We'll follow up with her for updates about those that were caught in this fire and did suffer injuries and are in the hospital at the moment. Hopefully we'll hear any developments on the news regarding their condition.
Maria, we're told by a lieutenant with South Fulton that 5 people who escaped that burning home were treated by firefighters on this scene, and then they were rushed over here to Grady Hospital. And luckily, Lieutenant Jackson, again with South Fulton Fire, is telling us that those 5 that were brought here are looking like they are going to be okay. They are in stable condition. And Lieutenant Jackson tells us that more people who were inside that house may have been brought to this and other hospitals by personal vehicles, but it's hard to keep track of all of that because the firefighters are busy, obviously, putting out the fire as well as trying to save lives, get access to the home and all of that. And so for now, again, for sure, we know that at least 5 victims are here at Grady, and Grady is really the spot to be if you are caught in a fire situation, and that's because they have the best burn unit in the Southeast. So this is the place to go. And one thing that makes it special here when it comes to burn care treatment is the fact that they can treat children. So, you know, it's a special kind of medicine with pediatrics, and so they are qualified to do that. And we know from our reporter, Rebecca Schramm, that they were working to figure out if it was adults or children or who all was in that house, who all are victims of this. And I know the firefighters themselves still weren't sure the last time we touched base with her. And so we're just going to be hanging out here at Grady. We're hoping to maybe be able to speak with some family members or speak with someone just to get a little more information about how many people have been brought here and what kind of injuries they have, because it really can be anything from burn injuries to just smoke inhalation, which is the most common type of injury when it comes to these kinds of situations. Can you hear me now? Okay. Yes. So yesterday, for example, I was at a warehouse fire where no one was in it, but the firefighters say that they're so focused when they're on the scene that they actually will even be not even noticing how cold it is outside, or notice, a lot of different factors. So much less get in touch with their emotions. But today's fire has been so moving and chaotic because of the unknowns of how many people are inside and because of the people that they have seen hurt in there. And so I would say that's a significant factor, and just the fact that we were able to get to the scene so early that we're watching this all unfold along with the firefighters. A lot of times firefighters will be called out, and by the time the news gets there, maybe it's been an hour or so, to the point where if the fire's not contained, they at least have the full scale of the situation. So that's definitely something that sets this situation apart. All right, thank you, Maria.
I believe you guys might have lost my audio there for a moment. Just recapping some of what Madeline said there at the end. Standing outside of the hospital where some of those victims were taken, some of them reporting are in stable condition right now. Madeline was saying that Grady Hospital is a great hospital to be at for burn victims because they have such a rapid response to those types of injuries. So those victims are currently getting treatment there. We know that a few of them have been reported to be in stable condition. This is a live picture for you from our photojournalist Jeff Moore, showing you the 7,200 block of Oswego Trail, where this house fire broke out at 4:42 this morning. That's when that initial 911 call was placed. By 4:52, we know fire officials responded and arrived at the scene. They described the home as being fully engulfed at that point, heavy smoke, flames emitting from the two-story home. They said they immediately attempted to make a defensive tactic to fight this fire, of course quickly determining that it was structurally unsafe to enter the home to fight this fire from inside, but they were able to bring those flames down. And right now what we're looking at is this ongoing investigation, looking into a number of things. Right now they are not able to go inside the home because of the significance of structural damage that I told you about just earlier. The roof, they described the roof as caved in. They said the stairwell suffered damage, so it poses a safety hazard to those investigators, to those fire officials and firefighters that are going to be entering the home at some point, hopefully, to assess the damage and look for more of those unaccounted persons. For now, we are going to continue our coverage, showing you this live view for as long as we possibly can as we wait out for those updates. What we are monitoring right now is those unaccounted persons. Now, we spoke to Rebecca earlier, and she described speaking with Lieutenant Eric Jackson of the City of South Fulton Fire Department, and he got pretty emotional about this. This is what he had to say.
Regardless of the strides we're making, it's still a tough thing. And anytime there's someone that's unaccounted for, not only do we take that seriously, but it's a gut shot for us.
He also said it was a different kind of day, saying that most of his fire department was planning to wake up today and go to a funeral for a fellow firefighter, Newton firefighter actually. They allotted resources for this funeral. They were going to come together to pay their respects and really be there for one another today, and that all changed when they got the call about this fire. Of course, Lieutenant Eric Jackson saying that really shifted things for them, and at one point even saying, you know, this was a different fire than what he normally responds to. We spoke with reporter Rebecca Schramm, who said that she's known Lieutenant Jackson for quite some time, and it takes a lot to get him emotional, and this fire was one that really got to him. So we are going to continue to look out for those updates about those missing and unaccounted persons, and also touch base with our reporter Madeline Montgomery, who's outside of Grady Hospital, where several people were taken there for treatment from this fire. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about those victims. 5 of them had to be transported to Grady Hospital. 2 more were taken by private vehicle. We know that a few of them are in stable condition, possibly have suffered burns. We haven't been able to talk to any of them, understandably, at this hour, but we are going to be continuing to hold out for updates about their condition as well.
Because they're still trying to make sure it's safe for them to go inside the structure. You might be able to see this is a large house, 2 stories, and we're still seeing some smoke rising from the home here as we watch firefighters down below starting to roll up their hoses. Not sure if it's shift change or if they're at a point now where they can sort of tamper off of all of their activity here. We know that several people lived in the home. Some of them made it out and were taken to Grady Memorial Hospital, but we know there are some who are still unaccounted for. Now, as you look at some video we took of the scene, I can tell you when I first arrived, I noticed there were tears in the eyes of longtime firefighter Lieutenant Eric Jackson. He used to work for DeKalb County Fire Department. He's now the spokesperson for the South Fulton Fire Department. We hugged, and then I asked him if he was upset because there might be children still inside that home. He's a dad, so that's why I asked him that. He said he wasn't able to confirm it, but that is what he's worried about. A little bit later, I asked him about his emotions today.
I know what they're feeling. I'm a nearly 35-year veteran of the fire service, and so I know what they're feeling. I know what they're doing. I know what they're having to contend with as far as information gathering, our investigators, our chiefs, our firefighters, all the way up, all the way down. So I feel it.
Yeah, and you know what? He also wanted us to relay to our viewers the importance of fire prevention. You got to remember, when it gets this cold, house fires are very common. You got to be careful with those space heaters. Maybe you want to make sure your bedroom is warm at night. Well, you still have to make sure that there's nothing flammable right next to those space heaters. You've got to be very vigilant there. We've seen it happen way too often. We've seen lives lost with people just trying to stay warm, so you have to be careful, and he wanted us to relay that to those of you at home watching. We're live in the city of South Fulton. Rebecca Schramm, Atlanta News First.
Oh, Rebecca, I hope there are no children in there.
I know.
really do. Thank you so much for that. And remember, you got to check your smoke detectors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure the batteries are changed in those smoke detectors. We are going to be updating this story for you throughout the day. The best way for you to keep up is by downloading our First Alert Atlanta News app. You can find it in your app store for free.
And I wanted to bring you that coverage from Rebecca, who's still very much going to remain on scene throughout today, bringing us updates. Any word from officials will relay to you on here on our digital platforms. We are also keeping you updated on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. I wanted to touch upon something that Rebecca said about space heaters. We do not know that that is the official cause of this fire. We just know from words from Lieutenant Jackson as he spoke with our Rebecca Schramm, just saying that this is a common cause of house fires, especially as the temperatures get colder, as we head into the winter months. Definitely take this time, take this story as a reminder to you to check on your space heater. Just make sure everything is good in your home and that everything is safe and out of reach of creating a fire hazard. Now, we are going to continue to keep you updated on this story as I end our live stream here on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. You can see updates coming in from Rebecca, our own digital team working hard to give you all of the details of this story. And of course, any on-air coverage is all going to be on here for you. The easiest way to view this, especially as I know a lot of you are going about your day-to-day, is to download that Atlanta News First app. And I say that only because this story is going to continue to develop throughout today. We want to keep you updated, especially if this is someone that you knew possibly, or a story that resonates with you. And we are holding out for updates from officials about those missing persons, those unaccounted for persons that are possibly, some of them, children. We do not know that at this time, but we're waiting to hear from officials whether that's the case or not. So that's all going to be on the Atlanta News First app or atlantanewsfirst.com.